Welcome to the Jerry Acuff Show. I'm Jerry, your host, and I started this podcast to bring to you people who are doing incredible things. I've always been fascinated by those who have found their greatness, and I'm excited to share the secrets of their success. Let's meet today's guest. Welcome to the Jerry Acuff Show. You know, I've never had a guest here that I wasn't excited to have, but I've had few guests that I'm more excited to have than Tim S. Marshall. Tim is a relatively new friend of mine, but I'm talking about a guy who knows how to build rapport quickly, and he and I connected about as fast as two people could connect. But Tim is a lot of things. He's an award-winning author of 6 books based on the incredible career he's had as the top account manager in the world for a Fortune 500 company for 10 years in a row. Now, I have to tell you, that's not easy to do. I don't care who you are, who you work for. And I know he worked for a huge company because it was a Fortune 500. He then started his own technology company and was recognized 4 years in a row by Inc. magazine as one of the fastest growing companies in America. Tim consults with Fortune 500 companies and entrepreneurs and is one of the most gifted consultants and entrepreneurs I've ever met. His latest book, The Power of Breaking Fear, and he's got 6 books, and they're all incredible reading, but The Power of Breaking Fear, The Secret to Emotional Power, Wealth, and True Happiness, in my mind, is a must-read for anyone who wants or needs to make permanent and overwhelming change in their life. And I don't know about you, but that's certainly describes me. His other 5 books are phenomenal, as I said. He consults with and speaks with huge companies, Fortune 500 companies. And I will also tell you, as someone who considers himself a bit of a sales expert, Tim is one of the best salespeople turned entrepreneur I have ever met. So, Tim, welcome to the Jerry Acuff Show.
Thank you, and I'm very happy to be on your show, and you're definitely 100% one of the best salespeople leaders I've ever met, and I'm not just saying that.
Well, I appreciate that. And, I mean, you and I spent a whole day together. I don't know, it was a week ago or 2 weeks ago, and it was just an incredible experience, which we like so much that we're going to replicate. And probably even do more together. But one of the things I was fascinated by as we were getting to know each other was what happened with your college experience. Can you share that story, because I just think it's so powerful, because I think people think that you have to start from the 50-yard line to score, when sometimes you can be 10 yards deep in the end zone and score.
Yeah, I mean, my story goes, I'm originally from Michigan, and my parents moved me down to Florida when I was 12 years old. And I had a great life. I played sports. I did my things. I had woods in back of the house. Everything was really, really good. And for whatever reason, I had a real hard time adapting to the change. And I literally just stopped going to school. My parents would drive to school. I would pretend I was walking to school, they would go to work, and then as soon as I saw them leave, I would head back into the house, and I would wait, and I was literally immobile, and that lasted for about 8 years. So, I got sick and tired of being sick and tired, and at the age of 20, I was in my parents' garage, and I found this Ziploc bag, and inside of it was a tape, and it was called The Strangest Secret by Earl Nightingale. And I listened to it, and I found it very interesting because it said, you become what you think about. And then I listened to it again and again and again. And then I realized at that very moment that my thoughts were holding me back. And if I wanted to move out of being immobilized, I better take an active move. And that was enrolling into community college. And, I just thought, okay, I'm going to roll into college, and, I'm going to get my 4-year degree. And, I saw my friends go away to school. So there was a very depth of loneliness and insecurity and fear. And I thought everybody was smarter than me, but I took the aptitude test, and the counselor said, I remember her words. She's just like, I don't know how to tell you this, but you're going to have to take, all the classes that you didn't learn for the last 6 or 7 years. And I was like, what does that mean? And she goes, you're going to have to take all the remedial classes. So at that very point in my life, at that very moment, I had a decision to either take something from the bottom up and take it head on, or, I could go into a different path. And I enrolled into college, and I went from remedial math to tutoring in quantitative methods, but it took me time. And what I learned from that tape was it wasn't so much what I thought about, it's actually my actions. So the better my actions, the more my thoughts changed, and then it just became like a freight train. And then, I got my college degree, which to me was a major miracle. I mean, I was so far behind in life, all the way together, from social skills to communication, presentation, everything. I just lacked everything. And that was my first big victory. And, that was probably one of the best things that ever happened to me in my life. But I had to put the action into it.
Well, back in the, a lot of people would call them the Stone Ages. People like Earl Nightingale and Fred Herman and Herb True had these tapes on Nightingale Conant, and and Earl Nightingale's The Strangest Secret was probably one of the most powerful ones. But I just love that story, because basically, you took yourself from a place where many people would have stayed stuck and made the decision to do something else. How'd you wind up in sales?
You know what? It was, let's just put it this way. My college professor said to me, and he meant well, and it was in my industrial marketing class. It was my last semester, my last class, and I gave a presentation. And I looked down on the notes. I had stage fright. I had panic attack, social phobia. I developed skills into learning, and I passed my classes. However, I had a real hard time getting in front of people and speaking. And he said to me, he goes, Tim, do me a favor. I know you took marketing. I know you've worked hard to get your degree, but I want to save you some time and headache. Whatever you do, it's just a recommendation. Don't go in outside sales or outside marketing. And he goes, I can see you sweating. I can see your social skills. He goes, it's not that you can't handle it. He goes, but I would do something inside, like be a manager at a restaurant, do something, whatever, which is fine. And I did the opposite. Somehow I ended up at a sales company selling copy machines, and I went away to training class, and this is at the time it was one of the biggest technology companies, and it was in Tampa, and it was a week-long class, and the same thing. I went away to class, and I got in front of everybody, all the junior reps around the country, and I had to do my presentation skills, and I finished dead last. And I'm like, oh, great. I mean, there's no way. I don't know how this is going to work. And then they had a sales contest, and they announced it before we left. And they said, the people that are around the country that have been in this company for less than a year, you guys are going to compete to see whoever sells the most in the next 6 months. And I remember thinking at the time, I'm like, that's definitely not going to be me. There's no way. And, I went back to the office, which was in South Florida, and I took this gigantic cross-reference guide of all the businesses that were in the, Dade County, actually it was Broward County and Palm Beach County, and I sat in back of a warehouse with a desk and a telephone. And I absolutely went on a tear. And the phone weighed about 3,000 pounds when I first picked it up. But it was my first initiation of developing phone skills in a way where I didn't give myself time to self-doubt the rejection. And I kept doing it over and over and over again until I learned how to build relationships with strangers over the phone. And 6 months later, and I sold a lot of systems, and 6 months later, this gentleman came up to me and he goes, is this yours? And it had my name on it. And I said, yeah, that's my name on it. And then it said, congratulations, you finished first. And not only that, you broke the company record. And I was like, how is this even possible? How is this even possible? And that was my first, aha moment in the business world, where I'm like, I didn't know any better not to work hard and the prospect and the cold call and learn how to build relationships. But I never measured anything I did as quotas or numbers or anything. I measured everything based on my own competition of what I could do every single day. And then from that time on, I was just a number one account manager every single year. And I just looked at every single day as a new day. No matter what I sold the day before, if I sold something or I didn't, I started over every single day.
Wow.
And, when the average quota was, 35,000, I was rating 400,000.
Gee whiz.
So it was just, I just went on a tear.
Explain because one of the most powerful things that I took vociferous notes when we were together, but I loved your idea of empathy, problem solution. Can you elaborate on that a little bit for people? Because entrepreneurs have to be salespeople. The last podcast I did, the guy said, if you can't build relationships and you can't sell, you ought not be an entrepreneur.
You're 100% right. And just statistically, it's a lot harder for an entrepreneur to succeed if they don't have sales skills. I mean, the percentages are ridiculously against you, and it's so critically important. But, for me, it's empathy. You have to be able to reach somebody in a certain way where you connect with them, not based off of your needs, but their needs. You have to put yourself in their shoes. Why would they buy from you? Kind of some of the standard things. But it's about qualifying in a way where you're doing something for them and you're making them the hero. You're making them feel good. You're building that trust, because, people either buy off of fear or they don't buy off of fear. And empathy is the one thing that people should focus in on, is helping somebody. If you truly, really, really like people, then empathy should be easy. And, selling a copy machine, there's so much competition out there. But when you have a relationship, all the competition goes away.
Right.
And that's the main thing. But empathy is also, having something that, where it could be, if you look at document management, I live in Florida, empathy could be, you have filing cabinets everywhere. What happens if a category 4 or 5 or 3 comes through here and you lose all of your customers' information?
Right.
I mean, what is going to happen? That's empathy in a certain way, but you back it up with the evidence of having a solution for them, figuring out a problem. And the more that you communicate with customers, and you learn more about what makes them think, what makes them tick, what's in it for them, because they usually have a certain person to report to. They have worries and fears, and all they want is just a solution and somebody that can help their job, in a way, and help their life become easier, more productive. And that's what empathy is really hitting somebody, right in the heart in a very good way, where it's just, a relationship, but understanding exactly what's in it for them the most.
But we have a tendency to associate empathy, though, with, I sort of feel your pain. What you're talking about is that I understand your pain, and as I communicate your pain to you, your fear about that pain or that possible pain is what makes me know you understand me.
Absolutely. And if, for example, if I said to somebody, What keeps you up at night? Now there's more, I come from the technology background, but I also, have taught and trained, in different areas. But if we just look at technology, does, a cyber attack worry you? Does it keep you up at night?
Right.
And a lot of the answers are yes.
Yes.
Okay, well, you know what? Let me help you with this. And here's the evidence and credibility of the customers that we work with. And then I tell them stories, and that's, empathy is something too that you bridge over to storytelling. If you tell a story of a customer that either was cyber attacked, and they had some of their information that was held up for ransom, and it's real, which it is, you tell them that story because they pay attention. Stories, sell. And the best thing you can always do is make sure you have credibility and evidence behind your story. And because you're going to get the customer to listen to you. If you're telling them a story, they can visualize it, they can understand it. If you're just telling them and talking at them, they're not going to process it because you're just going to be another person that's competing against somebody else. And that's where empathy comes in from a storytelling. And that's where, I sat down, and I think I mentioned this over the phone, where it's like Finding Nemo, where, the little fish gets lost. Well, you want to help the father along the way with all the different fishes find Nemo.
Right.
And at the end, everybody's the hero because you solved the problem. And then you find you found the fish.
Gotcha.
So it's imperative.
But the thing I love about it is it gave me a different perspective on empathy. It forced me to think about empathy as in pre-identifying, as you say, what keeps people up at night or what scares the bejesus out of them. Because that is highly motivating. That's a high buying motive when you can actually get people to understand that they have a vulnerability. It's the old fear of loss is greater than the desire for gain. How did this be yourself, sell anything come about? I love that because I'm a big believer that the best way to be successful is to be yourself. How did that come about that you'd want to write a book about it?
Where it's like you got to have, sales. To me, it can be a lot of fun. I like to, where I say for example, I went into the Jacksonville Jaguars and I went into a conference room and somehow, some way we were in a last minute bid situation. And, I just said, listen, I'm not looking to have a notch on my belt here because I have an NFL team. I'm looking to build a relationship. And I truly meant that 100%,
right.
And if they're good people, I'm a good person. I want to, help them with some of the customers I have and vice versa. So I'm just being myself. I don't, I don't change who I am. And, I've trained so many different salespeople where, I'll have a conversation with them and then I'll hear them talk to a customer and they'll turn into a different person.
Yeah.
And I'm like, wait a minute now. Whoa. And then you can hear them just belting out so much information, or they're not themselves. And you can see the customers kind of just twinging back away. And people can really read that. And it's just, it's really important to be yourself. But at the same time, the art of selling is also breaking through certain fears of selling,
right.
Which is, prospecting, or maybe having, doing the silent close where you don't say anything. And I tried that in the beginning, which was very uncomfortable, and you just have somebody you ask them a closing question. You don't say a word. You can still be yourself, but you have to practice the act of the sales process.
Right.
And when you combine the two and you're really truly yourself, I mean, your odds of becoming just a fantastic salesperson go through the roof.
Yeah, it's funny. I wrote a long blog, I don't know, maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago about a salesman that I hired who kept telling me to stop trying to teach him to be me. And I let him be himself because as a new manager, I didn't know any better. I said, it's my job to teach how to sell. And anyway, make a long story short, he wound up being the number one rep in the country out of 650, probably the best, salesperson I ever hired in my life. And I've had 15,000 people view that story. And so
Wow.
this what it says to me, though, is that the antithesis of authenticity is, being pushy and aggressive. And I just think that so many companies still teach people to be pushy and aggressive. This whole fall in love with the challenger thing, and I'm just like, the challenger. I mean, I don't want my customer to feel challenged. I want to make them think. I want to make them think differently, but I don't want to challenge them. I want to get to your latest award-winning book, The Power of Breaking Fear. Can you talk to my listeners about fear and why this book has such power in it for anyone, even those who think they're fearless?
Yeah, I mean, fear for me was, I've done certain things over 20 some years, and it's not about me, but it's about the trial and error of overcoming social phobia, panic attacks, college education, sales, entrepreneurship, building a company, never borrowing any money. It was all overcoming fear. And most things in life, we're always overcoming fear of something, whether it's fear of being late, fear of rejection, fear of a loss of a relationship, fear of an agreement not going our way, whatever it may be. But if you think too much about the fear, then how are you going to act on anything that's in a positive way?
Right.
So the bottom line behind the fear is awareness. My first chapter is becoming truly aware. It's not only just, asking yourself, oh, these are my habits. Well, no, you surround yourself with people that do good things. And then, if they're achieving a lot, then you can ask them too, the awareness factor. How do you come across? Even with the customer, I'd walk out of a customer and I would say, what? How did I do? How did I come across? But the more information I would learn about myself and or a customer and or about starting a company, the lower my levels of fear would go, so I'd become more fearless.
Right.
So it's just like it's an education and it's a practice and there's an art to it. And it's the number one cause of immobility in reference to, a lot of different things in life, especially with technology now, where it's like, there's so many different things that are just, plastered everywhere all over social media that, I had a conversation with this kid this other day that just graduated college, and he's like, there's too much competition because of everything he sees. Well, that's fear.
Right.
You've got to overcome your fear by connecting with other people. But the power of breaking fear is one of those things that, it's 20 years of notes, and it really is the secret sauce to uncovering that uncomfortability so you can take that problem and create a solution towards it. And then it compounds and compounds and compounds. And the next thing you know, you're literally building into a fearless person. And it's not about like jumping out of a plane or anything like that. It's just between your ears.
Right.
And, I've been lucky enough to coach athletes or young entrepreneurs, or I've had two gentlemen that were in their 90s start a company and just crush it. But because they educated themselves and they took, the principles out of that book, and it's like, boom, the fear meter went down and then the probability of success went up.
Right. So are you working on any other resources people can access to learn all that you've learned to be such a huge success?
Yes, virtual training. And virtual training is something that is going to be released in the next 30 days. The power of breaking fear, I would say, is the epicenter. It is the most powerful way to really try to build yourself up, to engage yourself into overcoming certain obstacles in your life. I've got 6 books. I've got virtual training coming out on each one, but I would say that is the most potent one that seems to have the biggest impact on people that are either stuck in something, want to achieve more, whether you're an athlete or you want to start a company, or if you're in sales or even in relationships. So that's the main thing right now.
Yeah, I was reading the other day about online virtual training by experts. Someone said is the greatest advance in adult education in 500 years. And the thing,
I agree.
And the thing that I love about it is, whether we're talking about Janine Driver, who you and I both know is one of the world's experts on body language, or you or me or Jeffrey Gitomer, the ability to consume that content 24/7 until it gets into your spine, until it helps you overcome your fear, until it unleashes the potential that's within you. That's not been available before. I mean, I go do a speech, you go do a speech, and the Ebbinghaus effect takes up, and I forget everything you said in 2 days. And this virtual training to me is just so powerful. I'm so glad to hear you doing that. I'm going to summarize here. I wrote 10 things down that you said that I thought were unbelievably powerful.
Yeah.
One, I love what you said, you become what you think about. Now, I did, when I first read that, I said, well, that can't be true, because if it were, I would have been a girl at 16, because that's all I thought about. But
I've been to that movie too.
but I loved your follow up to that, was that your thoughts are the things that were holding you up. You realized it was the way you thought that was holding you up, but then what you realized was that the decision for you to go from the bottom up or just to stay stuck was that the better your actions were, not just your thoughts, because your thoughts lead to actions, the more your thoughts changed. And that's what I call the opportunity of a lifetime. I say, the opportunity of a lifetime is the opportunity you have every day to make a choice to change your life. And every person has that very same opportunity.
Absolutely.
The other thing I wrote was, do the thing you fear, and the death of fear is certain. You sat in that warehouse with that telephone that weighed 3,000 pounds, and you made those calls and made those calls and made those calls until your fear died. And your fear died because you said to yourself, I will persist until I succeeded. The other thing I loved you said was, I competed with myself every day. I wasn't competing with a number. I wasn't competing with a quota. I was competing with myself. And I think when you can get people to compete with yourselves, at the center of that is the notion that for me to be successful, I have to be better every day. Your whole explanation of empathy, problem, and solution to me is brilliant. I mean, it focuses on the fear of loss is why people buy. Fear of loss is greater than the desire for gain. And then I love the way you bridge from understanding that empathy to being able to tell a story, because stories sell. When you talked about the Jaguars, you said, I'm looking to build a relationship. That to me is authenticity, because it's also rooted in what I call pure intent. Intent is my mindset at the time of a specific action, and your intent was to build a relationship, not make a sale. And what happens when you do that, when you have pure intent, is you transmit that to the other person. And if nobody else has done that, then you're going to wind up winning the sale. Overcoming fear is trial and error. And then the last thing I wrote here is awareness of your fears so you can face them and overcome them. And what happens is the way you overcome them is you ultimately learn what excellence looks like. And once you understand what excellence looks like through this trial and error process of facing your fear, then you have all the confidence in the world and the fear goes away.
Absolutely. And this is what makes you brilliant, is you just nailed all the takeaways. This is why everybody should buy your virtual training 100%, because I've never met anybody like you in my life that picks up information like that and regurgitates it, and the way you sell and the way you present yourself. And I'm not just saying it. I've yet in 25 years ever met somebody like you. So if anybody's listening out there, they need to get your virtual training platform. And there's nothing in it for me to say that 100%. But yeah, those were all just hammered takeaways.
Well, I would say that you and I are in the same mutual admiration society, because I have a call scheduled with you tomorrow at 3:00, so you can help me figure out how to get better at selling.
Yeah.
And I mean, I just look. I don't think anybody has a corner on the market on selling and selling expertise. I think people have great ideas, and I think I do, and I think you do. And man, I want to learn everything I can from you. Thanks so much, Tim, for being a guest. If you do not go buy Tim's book, Break the Fear. Let me make sure I get that what the title right. The power of breaking fear by Tim S. Marshall. Buy that book and read it. And when this virtual training comes out, go get it, because if you listen to what he has to say and all of the stories he has to tell, you're going to be way better at what you do, and you're going to have a lot less fear, a lot more prosperity, and a lot more success. And I promise you, you will be incredible. Thank you for tuning in today. I hope you enjoyed today's show, where we met yet another incredible person. As a thank you for listening, I want to extend a special offer. I want to give you 50% off of Jerry Acuff VT, because I want to help you be incredible. Head over to jerryacuffvt.com and use the code JAVT50OFF at the checkout and accelerate your path to finding your greatness.
RNCN, the digital destination for premium talk radio.